For our first standard in Chapter 8 or Unit 8, we are asked to graph exponential growth and decay equations. So for a level 1, you simply have to identify an equation as growth or decay before you are graphing it. Level 2 and 3 are essentially the same thing, except for in level 2, you just have to be able to graph one of the two kinds of exponential equations, either growth or decay when A is 1. And then level 3 is you can do both growth and decay when A is 1. And then for level 4, if A is not 1, you should be able to do both growth and decay. What is an exponential function, though? An exponential function is a function that has a variable as an exponent. And these exponential functions, when they are graphed, have asymptotes. Asymptotes are lines that get really close to the graph, but they never actually touch and they never cross the graph. So make sure that you take a moment to actually pay attention when you're graphing, that you don't touch or cross your asymptote. We use a dashed line to graph our asymptote. And like this says, this is not actually an exponential equation. It's just to help remind you that Gandalf is representing this asymptote for this rational equation, actually. And you can see that the graph, as soon as it approaches it, it just runs along it. It doesn't actually go or touch it or cross it. Think of it like a fence. When you have a dog running out from the house, it'll run directly towards the fence as someone's walking by, and then as they keep walking, it just runs along the fence. It doesn't actually cross the fence. Let's move on and take a look at what an exponential equation looks like. When graphed, an exponential equation will be a curve. This is an example of exponential growth, and here is that asymptote that I was referring to a moment ago. And we will always have a horizontal asymptote at y equals 0 in this class because ours will not shift. But notice how it goes along it but never touches or crosses it. And it has a very steep incline once you get to a point. It grows very quickly, and exponential decay will decline very quickly. There are several parts to an exponential function here, and this is an example of an exponential function. This a value serves as my y-intercept, and when it's negative, it will actually take this graph and flip it over to the bottom of the graph. And we call that reflection. So when we write the a value, we know that it's a y-intercept at 0, a. And that'll be important later on in the unit. Now this b value is what we also call this growth factor. It's called the base. And it tells whether it's exponential growth or decay. That's what we need for that level 1 in the first standard. If that b value is greater than 1, then it's exponential growth. And if the b value is between 0 and 1, then we call it exponential decay. Now, b is also never, ever negative. If you see a negative in front, then that really should always be applied to the a value. So let's go ahead and practice for our level 1 here and tell whether each one of these is growth or decay and why. So this first function here, my b value can always be found because it's directly next to the exponent. So in this case, b is 1.03, which is greater than 1. So we will say that this is growth. So it's growth because b is greater than 1. For the next one, b in this case would be 0.75. That's between 0 and 1, which makes it decay. And the reason? The b is between 0 and 1. I do ask that you identify that B value for me, either by writing it or circling it, put an arrow towards it, something, so that I know that you've identified B. 5/4 is my next B value. And 5/4, even though it's a fraction, it's actually bigger than 1. It's 1.25. So that makes this actually exponential growth because B is greater than 1. Number 4, here's my B value because it's touching the exponent. 1/2 is between 0 and 1, so this is exponential decay. 0.65 is my B value, and that's between 0 and 1, so this is decay. Why? Because B is between 0 and 1. And finally, this 3 is my B value. Even if there were no parentheses, even if it was written as this, just the 3 would be the B value. This is growth because it's bigger than 1.